Find reasons that you love about them for them. Fall in love with them for who they are. And what that will accomplish is when things change, when the variables may change, you still love them for who they are.
I'm Amanda Silver.
And I'm Alex Howard.
And this is Dirty Laundry. Welcome, Rabbi Meir, the rabbi at the Yorkville Jewish Centre. We're so happy to have you here. So thank you for joining us in studio.
Honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
So we always like to start off with just a bit of who are you? How did you, as a small boy, decide I'm going to grow up one day and become a rabbi?
Wow. So do we just start and end the podcast with that? Because I think that can take the next hour and a half. So
we're diving right in here. Real talk only.
Yes. So I'm born and raised in Vancouver.
Okay.
My dad of blessed memory was a rabbi in Vancouver. I guess to kind of condense the answer, I would say that it was my dad and honoring and following in his legacy that prompted me to do what I wanted to do, and to be a rabbi. My dad was a very beloved rabbi in Vancouver and passed quite suddenly at the age of 56. And I didn't necessarily know if my future was heading that direction, but that solidified that feeling. So born and raised in Vancouver, came to Toronto right down the street from here when I was 14 years old. There were no good advanced Jewish high schools in Vancouver. So I came to a high school at Bathurst and Lawrence and didn't really like it at first. Really didn't like it. At the end of my first year, I reached out to my dad and said, I'm leaving Toronto. I'm getting the heck out of here. This is not for me. To me, Toronto was a place I was never going to come visit again. It was just like a mistake that I made for the beginning of high school, and I was never going to be back there. And my dad responded, stick it out another year. You'll end up living there one day. I said, you are crazy. I will never live there. Moral of the story, if there's one takeaway from the podcast, never say never.
Right. And listen to your parents.
That's it. Listen to your parents. Yes. I ended up sticking it out another year, and I ended up finishing high school here. 1 year led to another, and I ended up making a lot of good friends and left for a couple of years, came back, met my wife, now wife, and dated, and subsequently got engaged, got married, and ended up in Toronto. So my dad's prediction came true. Married a Toronto girl, ended up in Toronto, and started the Yorkville Jewish Centre in Yorkville to be the only source of Judaism in Yorkville and surrounding neighborhoods. And also we that primary target, the primary focus for us is engaging the next generation, engaging my generation, engaging the millennial crowd, what we call the young professional crowd. So we have the empty nesters of Yorkville as well as the young professionals. And what's really nice is 5 years in, we have now an emerging young families community, which to begin with, it was just the young professionals and the empty nesters. But I've been blessed to officiate at 30 weddings. My most recent wedding was my 30th wedding to officiate, which was really exciting. And now many of those couples, my wife and I actually, even though I'm the one officiating, I consider it the two of us doing the wedding, because it's a process getting to the chuppah, getting to the wedding day. And for us, it's not just doing another wedding. It's actually a means of it's a means of creating a connection for a lifelong relationship. And it's very beautiful that it starts with the wedding, but now some of those couples are starting to have kids and
they need support.
And we're going we're going through that journey together. So now we have an emerging young community. Beautiful. And the idea was to create an environment that's just a warm. My motto is, it's not Marriott Bonvoy has them. Whenever I see them, Marriott hotels do an ad, I think about it, they call it the golden rule, and it's treating others how you want to be treated. And that's my approach to how I try to conduct myself as a rabbi, and the community that I want to create is, I don't like to be judged. I don't like to be pressured. I don't like to be told what to do. So it's creating a like-minded environment where it's a non-judgmental, pressure-free space where people can come explore their Judaism, explore their religion, and connect with something deeper. And, to conclude, wanting to create a space where Judaism or religion's not a detriment to their life. It's not just a bunch of rules that usually, when it feels like a detriment, you run the opposite way, but rather creating a value add to life and taking age-old wisdom and taking the beauty and the meaning of tradition and religion and making it something that enhances your life.
Beautiful.
It's beautiful. And I know some of your congregants who otherwise might not attend, a Rosh Hashanah service. They might not attend, they don't necessarily belong to any specific congregation, but they've gone to your services. And I know you host them at the Windsor Arms, and they've just felt so welcomed. And it's such a beautiful place where, like you said, there's no judgment. It doesn't matter, I guess, what observancy level you have. It's just come, participate, and be part of a community.
And that's exactly it. Thank you. No, but that's exactly the goal. That's always the greatest feedback to hear, because we want to, that's the goal, is creating such an environment where everyone could feel welcome, and we have 3,300 years of compounded wisdom. Use that wisdom and bring it to 2024.
Right.
Take that age-old wisdom and knowledge and apply it to the modern world we live in. And that's why being given such an opportunity to come on such a podcast is something I love to do, because it's take all the teachings, take all the studying that I've done, and how can we take thousands of years of knowledge and wisdom and apply it to, divorce, relationships, marriage in 2024.
Yeah. So you mentioned officiating weddings, so fun. In the
Alex does as well.
I do, yes. So I digress. We're not talking about I'm just curious about, because I know in the Catholic Church there are premarital classes. Is that something that you offer in the
very
Jewish
good
world?
question. Very good question. Actually, some of the points that I want to discuss today
Yeah.
are points that I do mention in our marriage classes, pre-marriage classes. So what will typically happen is I will meet with my wife, and I will meet with the couple to create.
Do it together.
Yeah. So
that's
initially
beautiful.
we'll meet with the four of us, go over the wedding and the plans, and to ensure that it's the most magical day of their lives and something that they can, for me, it might just be another wedding, but I'm cognizant of the fact that for the couple, it's the most special and magical day of their life, and I want to tailor make it and ensure it's done exactly to their liking and exactly the way they would like. So that's the initial conversation, is the logistics. And then oftentimes, what will happen, not oftentimes, my wife will meet with the bride multiple times, and I'll meet with the groom multiple times, and teach them Judaism's approach to marriage and so on, and what marriage looks like in Judaism. And then I'll usually meet with the couple as well and do that from a couple's perspective.
Okay.
So there are definitely pre-wedding classes and so on. Nothing done in a pressuresome manner, but more of just going in. It's not just another day where the next day life continues as is, but understanding that marriage is serious yet beautiful.
Having those conversations before the wedding.
Correct.
And is it
Correct.
typical
to come into marriage as well equipped as possible?
Right.
Because there is no really like training manual, or you have all of these sort of, let's say, advice, but it's typically advice after the fact when things have gone awry. How do we now fix this problem?
So it's preventative measures.
It's preventative,
exactly. And sorry, I was going to ask, is it typical for sort of a rabbi and his wife to do that together, or is that something unique that?
So it's interesting. So the initial, the fact, some rabbis will only meet with the couples themselves that first time. Like I said, I don't want it to just be, I use the term hit and run. I don't want it to just be like, hey, I'm doing your wedding.
Check.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I recently did a wedding and I feel that the couple, in all weddings that I do, the crowd as well as the couple could feel if there's a personal connection or not.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I did a wedding in the summer where, the bride's aunt came over and she said, wow, I see that I can sense the close connection that you have to my niece and nephew. And she says, at my wedding, I wish the rabbi was anything close to that, because at my wedding, he actually forgot my name. Her name is Susan, and he called her Samantha. And
Not even Suzanne. Or
it was like, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, you know what? This is the moment you've waited your entire life for, and not even to nail the name. And I always try to zoom out and, understand and empathize with all the situations. I can understand the rabbi where it's like, probably had 3 weddings that day or 2 weddings. He had someone else going on and his mind isn't there. But I don't think that's an excuse when you're when you meet with a couple, it can't just be that hit and run. You gotta connect with them. And I won't do a wedding if I don't feel that connection. I bring my wife because I want her to be able to connect with the bride. There's a girl to girl connection that I won't have. Yep. And I want it to feel that this is not just the beginning of an end, but the beginning of a, even the day after the wedding, even from a rabbi's perspective, that the relationship with the rabbi and with my wife continues, beyond the wedding.
But it is nice to have someone who says, we're going to be here not just for the wedding, but afterward. Yeah. For all the life's changes and struggles that come, we can be your sounding board. We can be your support system.
And we have that actually. It's quite nice because we always start an iMessage group or a WhatsApp group with the four of us.
Oh.
And what I love is the heading is usually, thank God there's a lot of weddings, so I need to specify it's, so-and-so's wedding. Yeah. And it starts off with usually, I love watching all the groups have the same sequence, how they start off with, honored to be a part. I'll usually write excited for this, and the bride and groom will chime in, my wife will chime in, and then it's like a little quiet as the months, it's usually a year in advance or whatever it is, X amount of months in advance of the wedding. And then it starts to get busier as we get closer to the wedding, and then it gets really busy in the days leading up. And there's like a certain silence like the day after. And it's usually that silence is broken by my wife and I commenting. We like to write a personal message on how we felt the uniqueness of the wedding. And then the bride and groom will usually chime in at some point when they get around to it. And then what's nice is it's usually like a happy birthday, happy anniversary, whatever it is, inviting each other out for dinner, whatever it may be. And then what's very nice is X amount of time later, it's like, hey, we have exciting news to share. We're expecting, and then it's planning like a Jewish baby naming or a circumcision. So doing it in the context of that group. And it's really cool how this wedding group, that the heading never changes, but now it's actually asking about preschools and asking about life and how it started with this wedding planning WhatsApp group. And now it's evolved into life's journey. And that to me is why officiating weddings is the greatest highlight of what I get to do as a rabbi, because it never gets old to see two people walk down. I get a vantage point that no one else gets. And I'm watching two individuals come in, two separate people. And in Judaism, we believe post wedding, post chuppah, you are now one. And I get to see two individuals, and I always think to myself, they have an option to opt out now. And it hasn't happened. Like, I'm like, no, it's like, it hasn't happened yet. It's not done. So someone, I'm proud. I'm 30 for 30. Everyone's followed through. It's gone well. But I always think that, like, they're coming down as two individuals, and they leave there one. And every single wedding's unique, and everyone comes with its upsides, its downsides, its challenges, and so on. And each one's unique in its own way. And it's the most gratifying feeling, because, like I said, it's not just the wedding; it's the journey and life's ups and downs to follow.
Do you feel a bit of pressure for you and your wife to then sort of be this, beacon of what a relationship should be like? Wow. I mean, you're involving her in what would be technically, let's say, your business. And so then now you have this, other perspective. Obviously, she's not done the same sort of education and all of that to the same extent that you have. It's a lot of pressure on the two of you to be this.
Great. These are great questions. Wow. Yeah, you bang on.
You're in the hot seat now.
These are great. I want to answer that. They say that rabbis are good at answering.
Should have had the wife come too.
Yeah, we might have to do a part two. We're going to do a part two.
I would love that.
She's better spoken than I am, and she is. We'll do that.
I'll have to do what you do.
I taught Alex the term Rebbitzin today.
There you go. So we'll just have to do a part two one day.
I'd love that.
Stay tuned, everyone. Stay tuned.
On her way.
Pause the episode now. Hang on.
But it's a very good question. And actually, answering that is something much bigger than just this specific question you're asking. Something that losing my dad at a young age, I don't want to sound morbid, but it does prompt me to think of legacy and, what I would want to be remembered for. And I think as a rabbi in this modern world, I want to be remembered for someone who made Judaism and religion relatable. I feel like there's so much, like anything else, in sales and marketing, you can have the best product, but if you don't know how to sell the product, no one's going to buy the product.
You need a good PR team.
That's it. If you can be sitting screaming in your own shop and saying, everyone come buy it, But if no one knows about it, or if they don't know why they should buy it, they're not going to come. They're not going to buy it. So I feel same with Judaism and religion. I consider myself in sales and marketing, that I believe that I am selling a product, and if I have to sell the value of the product and sell the upside of the product in order for someone to buy it. And I think it's important what I want to be remembered for. And I know my wife the same, is that for thousands of years, religious leaders of all religions were always a step above. It's no matter how good you are, I'm that much higher. I'm different than you. We don't have commonality. And I think that's actually, it may have worked hundreds and thousands of years ago, and it may have worked up until recently. It may have worked for thousands of years, but now it doesn't work. We live in a world where I believe the way to connect is to be able to tell people that I'm just like you. Yeah. My marriage has its ups and downs just like you. I'm figuring things out just like everyone else. I don't have a perfect marriage. I don't have a perfect relationship. I'm not the perfect husband. I'm not the perfect father. I'm not the perfect, and that's fine. This was a career choice that I chose. I hope to, maybe I have more knowledge in this area. Well, I don't know anything about mediation. That doesn't make you better than me. That doesn't make me better than you. And I just want to actually normalize being a rabbi, that yes, this is my area of expertise, and that's why people will come and ask me questions, but I'm just as human as you. I have the same desires. I have the same weaknesses. I have the same, I may have similar strengths, and I enjoy watching a Raptors game. My wife enjoys the same standard. I shouldn't comment. I don't know what show she's up to right now, whatever show, but I'm sure she's watching the same shows, and we're just as human.
Right. Yeah.
But this is our area of expertise, and this is where we can. So I actually like expressing that to couples. I don't necessarily air our dirty laundry, no pun intended, but I think it's important for couples to know that, and anybody for that matter. It's not only the couples we meet with, but anybody in my congregation. I want them to know my vulnerabilities and my weaknesses, and I think that's something that we should celebrate more of, and it's something that is brought up often in the version of Judaism that I like, is that we're not perfect. We're not expected to be perfect. God didn't create us to be perfect. If God created us to be perfect, he would have left us as angels. Angels are perfect. But us mortal beings are imperfect. And imperfection is not something you should just be complicit with, but it's something to celebrate, saying, I'm imperfect, but I'm going to try to achieve perfection. I'm going to try harder to improve. I'm never going to be perfect, but I'm going to constantly strive to do so. But marriage is a lifelong journey. And I don't think it's one that is anybody can say I'm done working on.
Never.
Right.
I don't think it's anybody, and that's kind of what I wanted to focus on today. When I was invited to come on, I was thinking about it, and I'm excited to join this podcast. And I feel discussing divorce alone, there's a lot there, but maybe it's how we can hopefully prevent divorce. And I think to myself, the immense power of this opportunity, where hopefully something that we can discuss today, if that can enhance someone's marriage and potentially keep them away from having to go the route of divorce, I think this was a smashing success. So, from Judaism's perspective, there's a verse early on, pretty much the first time it discusses marriage in the Torah. It says regarding Yitzchak, Isaac, meeting his wife, Rivka, Rebecca, it says, the verse says, he met her, he married her. I'm paraphrasing, but it says he met her, he married her, and he loved her. And the question's asked, why does it say he met her, he married her, and he loved her? It should say he met her, he loved her, and only then he married her.
But is that just a modern interpretation? Because realistically, when this book, sacred document, was written, I'm going to butcher everything about religion.
No, it's all good.
Marriage was that. It was, we have to unify our families. We need their land, or we need their goats, or, it was a
survival.
It was a contract out of need, out of necessity to survive. Yes, exactly.
And to procreate and to have.
To keep biologically speaking, that's kind of our job here. Don't die so that you can procreate and keep, the human being species alive. So that's sort of the historical approach. So I just feel like it's a bit of a modern interpretation to then say, well, we should love before we marry. That's kind of
or is the love that you grow and you build after the marriage what's more important than the
And we
love
do
that you
see
have
that.
before it?
Yeah.
And there's a difference, right?
So
between
our
the two.
perspective, at least my perspective on the Torah, is not just a history book and looking at it's actually a book of lessons, how we can take, yes, you're absolutely correct. Things were very different back then, but what is the modern, what is the practical takeaway for my life in this current age? Mm-hmm. And the takeaway is that true love comes with work. You're gonna have to love the person you marry, otherwise you shouldn't marry them if there's no love there. Right. But we live in a fast-paced world of just that instant butterflies, that instant wow, it's just swept off your feet that you see in that Hallmark holiday season. That's not real life. Real life is, yes, you're attracted, you love. Judaism celebrates the fact that you need to be attracted to your significant other. And we stress on that. It's not just a mail order bride. No, it's got to be that you're both attracted and there's got to be love between the two of you. Otherwise, don't get married. But that true deep love, that comes with time. He met her, he married her, and he loved her because that love that came at the end, that only strengthens with time. That doesn't end on the day of your wedding, but only gets started that day. And that comes through commitment. That comes through ups and downs. That comes through getting through the difficult times. True love is not tested on your honeymoon. If you're having issues on your honeymoon, then there's issues. But it's on that dark day, that difficult day when when something went wrong in the relationship, someone lost a job, someone, whatever it was, did something that really bothered that, and you can make it through that difficult moment, and you went through that struggle together, and you emerged from there together. That love becomes strengthened. That love becomes deeper.
Definitely.
So I was gonna say, so what do you think the issue is then? Why, there's obviously the divorce rate is increasing, and it's definitely not going anywhere. What do you think the issue is? Is it that people are marrying because they have the fireworks, and then they're just not sticking it out? They're not doing the work that helps create that long-lasting love, or they're just seeing like the grass is greener, or what is the inherent issue for our generation?
I don't want to elongate it, but Amanda, could I say all the above?
Yeah, definitely.
They tell a story. I can just close my eyes and hear my dad saying this, but he would always say the halibut story. Yes, and it's, do we have a few minutes for the halibut story?
Yeah, so
it's the halibut's swimming in the ocean, minding its own business, doing its thing, and sees some food in front of it. So it goes to chomp at the food. And as it chomps on the food, it notices it's not food, it's actually bait. And he feels the hook in its mouth and thinks to himself, this is it. It's been a good run, had a good life, but it's coming to an end. And as the halibut's being reeled up, it makes itself above the water surface, and it sees two fishermen staring at it. And the fishermen say, oh, it's a halibut. The king loves halibut. Let's bring him to the palace. So halibut thinks, well, this is great. So it gets reeled up. It's put in a bucket of water, makes its way to the palace. As it comes to palace gates, the guards say, what are you doing here? The fishermen respond, we have halibut for the king. Oh, halibut for the king. The king loves halibut. Bring him on in to the palace. So they come to the throne room. The king says, what are you here for? They say, your majesty, we came to bring the king halibut. The king says, halibut, I love halibut. Halibut wishes it could talk because the halibut wants to say, I love you too, baby. This is great. You're in love with me. I'm in love with you. This is awesome.
Hit the jackpot here,
right?
This
is it. In love with the king. And the king loves me. So before the halibut has a moment to internalize this roller coaster that just happened, this emotional roller coaster, the king says, bring him to the kitchen, chop him up. Halibut's super confused. Now this roller coaster took another curve. 1 minute he's going to be killed. Next minute he finds out he's in love. The king loves him. Now he's in love with the king, but he's being brought to the kitchen to be chopped up. And as he's in the kitchen, the knife is about to go down over its head. The fish thinks to himself, aha, the king doesn't love me. The king loves himself who loves the halibut. What does this mean? The king doesn't love me. If the king loves me, he wouldn't kill me. The king loves various different foods. One of those foods is halibut. So the king loves himself, which loves these various foods, and therefore the king can kill the halibut. But if the king loved the halibut, the king would never kill the halibut. I think in life, and I tell this to brides and grooms before their wedding, that oftentimes in life, and it's human's nature to have this mindset, but we have a checklist of what we love. We want a guy or a girl exactly like this. Some like them a little shorter, some like them a little taller, some like a blonde, a brunette, jet black, not jet black, streaks, whatever it may be, whatever the hair color is, whatever the skin color is, whatever the height is, the weight is, we have that optimal vision in mind of what we love. We want a girl that's a little louder, a little quieter, a guy that's like this, a guy. Yeah. And we have that whole makeup in mind.
Job they should have, their family, where they live. It go and on and on and on.
On. And we think and we find that person. Oh, I found that perfect person. And the reason why it's perfect is not because we fell in love with them for who they are. We fell in love with the list that we love, that we're looking for. And that works for the first couple of years because everything checks out. Right. They retain, he has the job that he dreamt of him having. The question is, what happens when he loses his job? Or what happens when she has a baby and her body weight may fluctuate and her emotions may change and things change. Life evolves. Question is, do we still love them for them, or do we love ourselves who loves the halibut? Do you love the halibut, or do you love yourself who loves the halibut? Do you love them for who they are, or do you love yourself who has this list in mind? And the second every box isn't checked off, I'm no longer in love. Well, were you ever really in love with them for them? Or were you in love with yourself who happened to love X, Y, and Z, and this person checked off all those boxes?
So when you bring this story up to brides and grooms, I mean, they're still in that sort of la stage where they do think that they love the person for the person. How do they differentiate between that?
I think it's just an awareness. It's a great question. I think it's an awareness of, I don't want to spell doom and gloom. I don't want to, but when I sometimes have brides and grooms call me up with issues that are rising, and I'm very quick to say that, life's great. Marriage is beautiful. Marriage is a beautiful thing, but issues will arise and challenges will arise a lot greater than, no offense, these trivial things. Oh, she didn't show up to my hockey practice. Right. I was playing a Thursday night championship game in my men's league and she didn't show up. How could she not show up? And I'm like, these are real things that are issues will come up greater than this, and things will change in life. And tell yourself now, when you're in this kind of land, you're in this blissful stage, find reasons that you love about them for them. Fall in love with them for who they are. And what that will accomplish is when things change, when the variables may change, you still love them for who they are.
Right.
Because I think that is why divorce is so rampant today, because one of the reasons that we're quick to give up, it's like, oh, it doesn't meet the things that I'm looking for. It doesn't, that Hollywood lust is no longer, no. Love will take time. True love comes through hard work. Changes will happen. And you have to ask yourself, when you get into that relationship, is, am I committing to them for them? And Judaism's perspective is, when you go into marriage, you have to be prepared to give 100%. I don't want to sound all airy-fairy and say, and expect nothing in return. Right. No, you're allowed to expect in return, but be prepared to give 100. It's not a 50-50 split. It's each one giving 100.
It's interesting because the oldest marriage contract, in human history is the ketubah, right? It's there for a reason.
That's it. And you have to be committed and you have to be prepared to give. And it's interesting because I oftentimes get asked the question, why is it that in Orthodox Judaism, divorce rate is so low? And Judaism's not a religion where divorce isn't allowed. There is a whole section that discusses exactly how to go about divorce, and if a couple needs to get divorced, how to go about doing so. I think the reason why it's so low is one of the reasons, I should say, because I don't think anything could be simplified into one reason, but is understanding the role. And what's interesting also is in Orthodox Judaism, couples can go on 6-7 dates and decide to get engaged in 2024 in the modern world. And it's not the stereotypical idea of like a mail-in bride or an arranged marriage. No one's forced to do anything. No one's forced, but you're going out with intent of knowing, is this someone that I can spend the rest of my life with? Is this someone that can complement my life and I can complement theirs? Is this someone that's compatible to be a life partner? And I think that's what makes it so successful, is you're going into it you're going out not just to have a good time, because couples can go out for 2-3 years and still not know if this is the right person. You're going out with discussing, what are the discussions on the dates? what do you want to do in your life? What do you want to achieve in your life? What work are you looking at? If you're already working, what do you do? What are your goals, your aspirations? How many kids do you want? What are your morals, your values, your ethics? What means the most to you? What do you want to achieve? And when you come at it with that mindset, then you don't need a date for years on end, because it's like it's the greatest deal you're going to close in your life. And you don't need to go bowl when I'm not comparing this to a business deal, but someone's closing a business deal. They don't need to go bowling with the person they're cutting the deal with. They don't need to go, necessarily, they don't need to just go hang out. They need, and the reason why we do hang out, even in the religious world on a date, is because you want to see them in all different settings, but is this person a compatible life partner that I can commit to them and they can commit to me for creating a life together, and God willing, a family together, and so on and so forth. And I think when you go with that mindset of understanding that you're committing yourself to another person, it's very different. I tell, the first thing I do when I sit with the bride and groom, particularly actually, I do it when I'm sitting alone with the groom. I say, marriage doesn't make any sense. You shouldn't do it. And they're like, what the heck? It's like, really? How does this? Yeah, where's this going?
That's your pull quote.
Yeah, where is this going? And my response is, if you think about it, like, we are animalistic beings, and animals don't believe in marriage. Especially, I got to hate on the guy for a sec, but the guy usually mate. You mate.
Spread that seed.
You mate,
That's
you
your
mate,
job.
and you move on.
Yeah.
Yes, the female animal has that element of nurturing and so on and raising the kids, but the guy moves on.
Right.
And I tell guys, if you think about it, marriage doesn't make any sense. You can rent whatever you need to rent or pay for whatever you need to pay for to fulfill certain things. And imagine if you can retain, the Canadian tax system kind of celebrates marriage. You're in a much higher tax bracket but for the most part, you'll pay a little higher tax. But imagine how much all that money just for yourself. It's amazing. And you can just move them with a couple of guys, go party for the next
bachelor lifestyle.
Yeah, bachelor lifestyle till the end of days. It doesn't make sense to go commit to another person, to have to go deal with whatever, all their issues, and go deal with supporting them and then supporting children. Marriage is a selfless act, but it's the single greatest act. Personally, I find the ability to know that there's billions of people in this world, and to know that someone out there loves you and they chose you, and to bring kids in the world that hopefully love you as well is a beautiful thing. But it's difficult, and no one should think that it comes easy.
I think more and more folks are kind of accepting the fact that, physically we will change. Obviously, we're living much longer than, we did historically. And so if you were to commit your life to someone, well, your life ended at like 35, not that big of a commitment. You're probably not even bald by then, or, what have you, give or take. Now we're living, to 100. And we do go through sort of life cycles. And I think, yes, when you meet someone, you sort of have that physical attraction, there's that chemistry, whatever. And then you can say, okay, well, on a deeper level, can I imagine marrying them, living with them, starting a family with them? I think the difficulty is that our needs change so much. So if I'm, in my 20s and my need is for a partner and to start a family and, all of those things, maybe it is just that checklist you were referring to, but fine, those are my needs now. I need somebody who's going to be supporting me and helping out with what have you. But then as I grow up, my needs change. I no longer need this same kind of support in the way that I did, or my kids are now grown. I don't need another, co-parent or something. Now is that person fulfilling my needs now?
Right.
So it's not even the changes that happen physically and externally. It's like deep inside, we literally become a different person. We're living so many lives and so quickly. Like in this day and age, things are changing so rapidly. So how do folks still manage to meet the needs of their partner as those needs change, as we grow,
and just want to grow old with that person?
Yeah, and to want to support through sickness and health and through rich and poor.
Right.
Like these are big things that we are, that we're taking these vows and we're making this commitment, but we can't predict who we're going to be in 30 years.
And that's why I think that commitment, comes to, do you love yourself or love them? When you love them, it only amplifies the longer you're together. That's why you look at a couple that has a great marriage, you see these we see these TikToks or these Instagram, a guy who just lost his wife after 67 years of marriage and they're heartbroken.
Yeah.
Why? Because when you're committed to that other person for all those years, that life only gets strong. That love only gets stronger. It's not about the ups and downs. It's not only about those. It's not about the needs changing. It's if you're committed to them, then it's irrelevant what the needs are.
So you just think take divorce right off the table. It's not even an option.
No. And we're going to get into Judaism, and I have to stress this, that it's important. Judaism is different than other religions when we say divorce is an option. The way I like to understand divorce, I hope this is not too intense. The way it makes sense to me is like an amputation.
Right.
No one ever says the first resort is, hey, amputate.
Cut it off.
All right,
Chop off that leg.
Exactly. I have like a small infection on my leg, off it goes. No, no one wants to live life with an amputated limb. And why I like the amputation analogy, even though it's more of a graphic and difficult to stomach analogy, but you want to do everything. You want to try every alternative.
Last resort.
Yeah, you're going to visit every doctor you can to see if there's any other option, any way to salvage that limb prior to removing that limb. And you're going to do everything. You're going to try every therapy and everything. But sometimes that if that limb isn't amputated, it's going to infect the rest of the body.
Right.
So Judaism says no. And actually leads to the question that I was thinking about coming here is that if God teaches us marriage and God and we're taught to believe that you met your significant other and the meant to be is in Judaism we use the term bashert. You met your significant other. And God believes in your marriage and you should believe in your marriage and God believes in the two of you being together, then why would that same God teach divorce? Why is there a way out? No, this is meant to be. Stick this all the way through. The answer is that actually teaching us divorce can help us enhance our marriage. God says you screwed up. Your marriage didn't go the way you wanted it to go. Yes, technically it should have worked, but it didn't. That's fine. There's an element of forgiveness. There's another option. There's an alternative. You're not stuck forever. Right. And if we apply God's approach to divorce and marriage to our marriages, it can help us. It can help our marriages work. How often do we apply forgiveness to our marriage? How often do we bring in that ability to truly forgive? I'm not saying you have to forgive, and not every situation is forgivable, and no one shall live a life of pain and a life of suffering. And if it means that opting out of this marriage will give you a happier life, go that route. But try to make it work. Try all the alternatives. But if it doesn't work, there is that element of forgiveness. There's an element. God teaches us a plan B. There is another option. You can get divorced. You're not stuck in this forever.
Yeah, and we forgive for ourselves, not for the other person.
Well said.
I am curious though, from your experience then, in this sort of belief of like, let's try everything before we amputate, by having that sort of back door, that escape hatch, that, do you find then that people are just like, well, then let's just take it? Like, let's leave before we've really tried.
I don't think so. I think knowing that it exists is there, but I think and as a rabbi, we're going to try every option. We're going to try, and that's something I want people going through difficult marriages to know that, number one, there is help. There are great. Yeah. And if anybody needs to, I have people, not rabbis, but great marriage therapists that I suggest to people that are phenomenal. I think divinely sent people that are just so talented in what they do. And number two, people shouldn't. So number one, there is help. And number two, people shouldn't be scared to ask for help. It doesn't have to be a blissful marriage. The same way, if you're experiencing some sort of health issue, no one says, oh, I'm embarrassed to go to my doctor and seek help. No,
you're just going to sit in pain and just deal with it.
Exactly. You're dealing with pain. You're dealing with an issue. Help should not, there should be no stigma to needing help. Number three, it's that it's never too late to make things work. Some people say, hey, we've been giving it 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, whatever it is. It's never going to work. No, it's never too late to set a reset.
Yeah.
And number four, I think is like as we discussed, the power of forgiveness. It's the ability of just allowing that reset to happen.
Yeah. I think a lot of it's just expectation management. And that's why I love that you are sitting down with these folks prior to marriage to be like, hey, it's going to be really hard.
Which totally leads us to the next point where I think that why divorce, and I'm seeing it actually penetrating the religious world more than ever before. And I almost directly attribute it to social media. And,
Preach.
I want to create.
He doesn't preach.
Oh, I
He's a rabbi.
forgot. Sorry.
As I mentioned before, when you used the term preach before the podcast.
Don't preach.
Yeah, no, well, we would love to preach, but no one's going to listen. We don't like being told what to do. So I can merely suggest.
Suggestions, kinds, soft suggestions.
Correct. But I think the challenge of social media to relationships is this narrative of it's never been more real, the grass is greener on the other
Or
side.
this picture perfect.
That's it. And it's
that's
like
really
you're
doing a
looking
big
at, and it
Yeah.
really, really does. And you're looking at this other person, and you're seeing your friends out, and you're seeing their husband and thinking, oh my God,
They're happier.
they're happier. And this guy looks like just the dream.
Their vacation's
and he's got
better.
it. And he's got it going for them. And what I always think to myself is no one's going to go on social media. I always like to bring the vacation analogy, and you're enjoying your winter break, but you see a friend on vacation doing their winter break somewhere else, and you think, wow, look how big. No one's posting a picture on a rainy day. There was actually a young boy in my community that was just in Miami last week, and he posted a cloudy day, and he said, like, come on, just a little bit of sun.
Right.
And I couldn't help but respond and be like, kudos to you, because everyone usually what social media has done is you wait for that 1 hour of the whole trip where it's sunny, be like loving the sun.
Totally
It's like
guilty of that.
that's such garbage. That's not
Yes.
true. And it's like I think what social media and to me the beginning of the end was using a filter for the first time, and I realized, why am I doing this? Why am I filtering? Why am I not comfortable with the picture the way it is?
Right.
It's embrace it. And I dreamt of, I'm not a tech savvy guy, but I always dreamt of creating something called Reelagram, where it's like, no, you're encouraged to post your burnt dinner and still say how much you love your wife, even though she burnt the dinner, and or your kid or whoever it may be, and post the pictures of your kid room that's turned upside down. And it's like, thank God I don't follow as many influencers, but I see it on my wife's, and I say thank God because I see my wife's Instagram, and I don't think it's real when you see every kitchen's perfect, every table's, every dinner is perfect. That's not real. And I think how that permeates into and how it impacts relationships and marriage is that you think it's going to be better elsewhere, and it's not. And as a rabbi, I always say this, one of the greatest upsides of my profession is getting, not that I take joy in someone else's misery, but it's the ability to see that it's not necessarily as glamorous as it looks. And that person who you think's got the perfect life, newsflash, fun fact, they don't.
Rabbi, this has been so amazing. Obviously, we could talk for hours about all of these wonderful things. Last messages to our listeners. We always try and give a little tips or tricks at the end, or any last, sort of insights you want to share before we wrap up.
So, first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity. It was really an honor to be here with you guys today. And I think that was one of the quickest segments in my life. I feel like this was just like 5 minutes, and it's. I think we're coming to an end here. But a parting message would be that, as I mentioned earlier, everyone should know that there is help available. No one should ever feel that it's just a dark space that they find themselves in. There is always light at the end of the tunnel. Divorce is an option if necessary. Right. And just know that help is out there. Your network is stronger than you think it is. Support is stronger than you think it is. When people are going through difficulties, they oftentimes feel alone, whether it's rational, irrational. And I just want to conclude by saying that everyone out there should know that they're not alone, that there is always help available, and things will get better. Yeah.
This episode was written and created by Alex Howard and Amanda Silver, produced, edited, and engineered by RTF Productions. Make sure to rate and review our show if you loved it, and give us a follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you stream your podcast to stay up to date on all upcoming episodes. Thanks for listening, and go easy on us. We're not your ex.